All right, we keep things rolling on a Friday. Former 49er Jesse Sapolu in the house, and the Niners take on the Browns this weekend. Also, there's a Golden Heart Fund event coming up tomorrow that we're going to tell you about. And if you are in the chat, you can check it out. I put it there for more information on the Golden Heart Run. You can contact Rodney Knox at rodneyknox@goldenheartfund.org or visit goldenheartfund.org. And Jesse, good to see you, man. How are you?
Good to see you, Larry. I'm doing good. Thank you.
Well, we're excited to have you with us. And before we talk about the Niners and the Browns, the Golden Heart Fund is going to host their third annual Golden Heart Run, a 4.9K charity run at Levi Stadium. It's taking place tomorrow. All the proceeds benefit former 49er players facing a range of challenges in their lives post-career. And I'm so taken by the Golden Heart Fund. I just love it. For people who are not aware, the Golden Heart Fund is a player-led mission. And last year, the board dispersed over $100,000 in emergency assistance to support former 49er players and surviving spouses facing challenges. And this year, the board is on track to increase the support. So we're challenging all fans, young and old, to come out and run or walk in support of the guys. The race day registration begins at 7 a.m. with the race starting at 8 a.m. The kids' run will begin at 10 a.m. All the participants will receive a Golden Heart Run T-shirt and a finisher's medal. Entry fees are in person $45, virtual $35, $25 for the kids' run. And donations, of course, are greatly appreciated. Sponsorship opportunities and donations for giveaway items are still available. All the sponsors will receive signage, recognition, and be highlighted on the event website. Jesse, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the Golden Heart Fund, because if there's one charity that I really want to get behind as a lifelong Niner fan and as a supporter of this franchise, it's the Golden Heart Fund. Eddie D spoke out about the need to continue to take care of the players after their career during his Hall of Fame speech. It got a standing ovation. And Eddie's being one to put his money where his mouth was, helped create this foundation. And Jed has supported it. And it's a great thing, and it's something that I'm 100% behind. Tell us a little bit about your involvement and what you think of the fund overall.
Well, Eddie D is a trendsetter. He's always been a trendsetter since he was our owner during our playing days and the dynasty years. But I think it's something that we're so proud of, the fact that we're not just dependent on the NFL retirement. We realize that the retirement is not as good as when we were playing, and that there's some of our guys that really need help, not only financially, but emotionally, to take care of their families. And Larry, when you're trying to become a champion, there's a price to pay. And my teammates and the former guys, the alumni, those are the guys that pay physically and emotionally. And this fundraiser and this Golden Heart Run will assist in helping our 49er alumni. I'm very proud of Harris Barton, Ronnie Lott, Keena Turner, Ron Ferrari, Junior Bryant, some of those guys that are behind with Eddie D, pushing this for our alumni. So, I'm very proud of it. I'm passionate about it. I think our fans realize that these are some of the guys that put their health on the line, put their lives on the line to bring, a good, happy spirits to the Bay Area during our run, and it's nice to give back.
Yeah. For every quarterback or maybe a superstar player who doesn't have to work after their career, I think people sometimes group all pro athletes together. And the reality is that for NFL players, a lot of times most NFL players have to have a career of some kind after their playing career. And sometimes they leave football beaten up with their body, maybe beaten up with their mind. And even Steve Young talked about how it's very difficult to transition from being a pro football player despite the notoriety it may give a lot of players, it doesn't necessarily prepare you for that second career. And there's a lot of guys who just struggle with that transition. But what I love about the Golden Heart Fund, it's not a handout; it's a hand up, right? It's a way to support guys who have paid the ultimate price sometimes, and have paid a physical toll. The game took a toll on their body and mind, and they just need a little bit of assistance. And I love that Eddie D spoke on this. Eddie D got that family vibe from his father, who took care of their employees before he ever owned the 49ers. And so it's really a DeBartolo thing that was passed on to Eddie, through and now touches the 49er players. But it's something that Eddie D's father, really started with his companies, way back when, before he ever owned the Niners or the Penguins, for that matter. I love it. And I'm just talking to Guy McIntyre. He was saying, there are other avenues from the league that are there to assist players, but there's a lot less bureaucracy here. There's a lot less red tape involved. You guys can get the assistance and the financial support that's needed to the people in need much, much faster than the league can. And I know the Dolphins have copied this plan. Someday I kind of hope that all teams in the league copy this. But I just think that, Eddie D, always was a guy, or is a guy, who doesn't just talk the talk, he backs it up with his actions. He walks the walk. And this whole thing is such a great example of that, Jesse.
Yeah, but I think, Larry, you touched on it from the very beginning of your comment, and the transition is not easy. What people fail to realize is that when you see us retire, that's one of the few times you see an athlete cry when they announce their retirement, because this is something we've been doing since we were 10 years old. And that's all we know for the most part. We dedicate our lives to become the best so we can make it to college. And then, of course, when you play in the NFL, you're the tip of the iceberg. And sometimes you don't look outside of that life, and then all of a sudden it ends. It ends suddenly. And most players aren't prepared for that transition like you spoke about. And the other thing, Larry, is that when we played, I played as long as I could, so that I have an opportunity to take care of my family for life. But the salaries that we made, if you play 5 years, 6 years, unless you have perfect investments, the chances are, like you say, you better look for another career to continue your life, to take care of your family. So, and obviously with a lot of the athletes that all they know is to go out there and perform and win, it's hard for them to make that transition outside of the game. And those are the people that, like you said, we're not here to give them handouts. A lot of them is just to get them back on their feet, and then point them in the right direction so they can be self-sufficient and take care of their families. And the Golden Heart Fund is a big part of that.
You played from 1983 to 1997. You won 4 Super Bowls. I don't know if people know this, but Jesse's one of only 6 49ers to own 4 Super Bowl rings. You were on the 84 team, the 88 team, the 89 team, and you were a veteran on that 94 team. And it almost never happened, Jesse. I mean, why don't we go back there? Because, you were able to have a lengthy career, make enough money to support your family, but I'm sure you can look at the injuries that you had. Was it to the foot early on where it was like, maybe you weren't going to have any kind of a career?
Yeah.
And you might, think about your situation. If you had not been able to persevere and come back from those injuries, it might have been a much shorter ride than it ultimately was. Do you ever think about that you were very fortunate to be able to, you suffered injuries early, but you overcame them and had this Hall of Fame type career? But it made, a little break here, a little break there, a little unfortunate thing here or there, and it could have all gone away. It was very, very touch and go that you were able to do that.
Yes, and one of the things that we do with our alumni department is they send me up to the injured reserve suite to speak to some of our guys that are injured, to encourage them and share my story about, I broke my foot 3 times.
Right.
I broke my left tibia. You talk about, and then I had open heart surgery and came back and played my last year. So when you talk about, coming back from injury and the different challenges that I went through, yeah, I got 4 Super Bowl rings and I played 15 years, but there were a lot of challenges, Larry. I mean, if it wasn't for Eddie D, Bill Walsh, and Bob McKittrick, I was ready to walk away, after I broke my tibia on my left leg because, I'm always under the impression that 11th round draft choices, they're not patient with you, you know.
Right.
But the great thing about it is I had a great rookie year. I came in, they had that line that won the Super Bowl in, John Ayers, Randy Cross,
Von
Keith
Horst.
Farnhorst, Fred
Yeah.
Quillen. And I broke through and I started 3 years. I mean, three games my rookie year, which is unheard of as an 11th round draft choice, and did well, when Fred Quillen went down. So, they knew they had a steal. And then I came back in the off season when I was training. I broke my foot on the AstroTurf. And then, it wasn't handled right because Ricky Waters had the same injury, but they learned how to handle it from my injury. You just got to
Right.
put the screw in there. It's an injury that's very common, but you can't treat a football player the same as you treat a guy that sits in the office that wants to go and play tennis. Because I'm 300 pounds, I'm pushing another 300 pounder, so the bone healing itself wasn't enough. So you had to put the screw in there. So I had to go through that a little bit. Went through my tibia. Long story short, I went through a lot of injuries, so a lot of adversity. So this past week, I went up there to see Mitchell and Cameron Latu and shared a story with them and how I almost gave up. And when I finally came back from my last injury, I went on a 155 game starting streak, which lasted over 10 years.
Wow.
And when I look back about it on it, Larry, the fact that I walked into Bill Walsh's office and I said, I'm ready to retire. That was just me feeling insecure because of the stories that I heard about free agents and low round draft choices.
Now, Jesse, did you have children of your own? Because I'm sure if you look at a guy like Cameron Latu, you probably see, you're in your early 60s. He's, you probably see somebody that's almost like a son, somebody
Yeah,
who's like, these guys are so young. I walk in the locker room now and I'm thinking, I've got a 22-year-old son. And I'm looking at these guys and I'm talking to these guys. And I'm like, wow, these guys are the same age as my kids.
yes, I have 3 sons. And all of them are older than these guys.
Yeah.
They're older than Talanoa Hufanga, who I talk to all the time. But it's important for us to support these young men. And not only that, they talk to me about you guys went 5-0 in Super Bowls. At the time
Yes.
we were doing it, Larry, we just felt like it was something that we were supposed to do because we earned the right to play every year and say it's either Super Bowl or bust. I played in 8 NFC championship games. So I tell
Wow.
people this, I said, I got 4 Super Bowl rings, but I've had my heart broken a lot. So the thing that's similar about Kyle Shanahan's teams is I think this is the 3rd year in a row, or we've been to 3 out of the last 4 NFC championship games. So the consistency is there. You don't win rings by just out of nowhere, you're hoping to come in and play for the Super Bowl. You got to keep proving yourself, keep building, adjust certain things because, injuries plays a big part of this thing too, Larry. I mean, we're looking really, really good right now, but I'm praying that we stay healthy for the most part.
Yeah, knock on wood on that one. 49ers, for you younger fans, could have won it all in 83. Got robbed at RFK
Yeah,
Stadium.
my
Could have
rookie
won it.
year.
Could have won it all. I mean, those are some bad calls at the end of that game.
Yep.
Eight could have won it all in 85, but there was the
Yeah.
85 Bears. Could have won it all in
Yeah.
86, but the
Yeah.
86 Giants were amazing. Could have
Yeah.
won it all in 87. Should have won it all in 87.
87 was a heavily favored team.
Yeah,
I
that team
mean,
got upset
we,
by the Vikings, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
Anthony Carter had an incredible day that day, and the
yeah,
Redskins went on and won the Super Bowl. Did win it all in 89. Did win it all in 88, 89. Should have won it all in 90.
yeah,
The Roger fumble, and nothing against Roger, he belongs in the Hall. as you do
Mhm.
as well. But that easily good enough to win in '90. The '92 team that had Steve Young that the Cowboys upset
Yep.
was maybe the greatest 49er team of all time that never won. I mean that Niners Cowboys '92 NFC Championship game, in my mind, was the greatest collection of talent I've ever seen on a football field ever, even to this day. And the Cowboys had a brilliant game plan that day, played ball control, and found a
And
way to pull an
it
upset.
was raining. It was raining too that day. Remember that, Larry?
It was
I mean,
mucky
the
and
field was
terrible.
wet.
And
Yeah.
well, you know what my favorite play in that game, Jesse? It's funny. I was talking to
Mhm.
Guy McIntyre. Jimmy Johnson got all big and braggadocious because he had guaranteed it all. Well, he actually guaranteed the next year. But this one, he was feeling really good. And the Cowboys were on the doorstep. And he said, instead of kicking the field goal, I'm going for the touchdown. I'm going to put it in their face. And, little known fact, but Michael Carter, who was long in the tooth at that point, trotted onto the field and they tried to run in the A gap. And Michael Carter stuffed that run. And to me, it's one of the greatest plays in Niner history. Of course, the Dallas would go on to win that game. But just the fact that Jimmy was trying to put it in the Niners' face,
Yeah.
and Michael Carter said, "Not today." Um, that was one of my favorite moments, even in a loss. And of course, next year Cowboys were even better, won it again. Then the next year after that, you guys won again in '94, and that was the last Super Bowl. '95, you guys went there and beat them in Dallas, and then eventually lost to Green Bay, I believe, and Dallas
Yeah.
would wind up going and winning their third. That was Barry Switzer's one ring. But I'll tell you, there's a number of Niner players that belong in the Hall. You're one of them. Guy McIntyre is one of them. Roger Craig is one of them. And to me, Michael Carter might be the guy who time has forgotten. I don't think you, as an interior offensive lineman, you practiced against Michael Carter. He was a silver medalist in the Olympics in '84 as a shot putter, and
Yeah.
he was fast as a young player. He had foot injuries eventually, but I don't know that there's ever been a stronger nose guard. And I just thought when the Niners had him and Fagan and Holt, that was an unbelievable threesome in the 3-4-D. What was it like practicing every day against Michael Carter?
He was a load.
Yeah, I mean,
The funny thing about it, Larry, is I was in camp and I'm watching the Olympics, because he's throwing in the Olympics. And
right,
we all knew we drafted him in the fifth round, right?
right.
So and then he won the silver medal. But I saw him, in between practices, there's highlights. I was just watching. I'm like, oh yeah, that's our fifth round draft choice. He's going to report after. Then he reported, and I think I was, I had my broken foot at the time,
Okay,
but so that was I was out for 5 6 weeks, and I spoke with Manu Tuiasosopo, who was also
great
was a
ex Niner
starter,
defensive
was
lineman, very
right, and
strong.
he told me, in the dorms at Sierra College, said, Jess, this kid is an athlete, man. I'm like, what? A guy that big, that short, that wide? He can't be an athlete. And then I went out there in my crutches and I'm sitting on the cart watching. I'm like, yes, he is an athlete. He is quick. And then and then I finally came back and practiced, and he was a load. He was a load to practice against. And he made me better, Larry. He made me better. And, we played in Germany against Chicago, and I went up one on one with the refrigerator and a guy
Yeah,
named
Hampton.
they had a rookie that was called the strongest man in college football named Chris Zorich. Remember that name?
Oh yeah, from Notre
And
Dame.
yeah, he was on in Sports Illustrated as the strongest man in college football. So of course, Bob McKittrick is challenging me in the meeting room. Jess, you went up against him. He is nothing compared to Michael Carter. I told Bob McKittrick, I'm having fun in Germany, man.
That is awesome. You
I'm having
also
fun.
went up again. Well, maybe not because you might have been playing guard. Where did you play in Super Bowl 23?
I played left guard.
You played left
That was
guard. So
Randy Cross's last year.
you didn't play against Crumry, huh? You didn't
I,
match
I
up against
well,
Crumry.
I
Or
actually
sort of
did
did.
because there's combination blocks where In fact, the play, if you look at the play, Larry, that he broke his leg,
Right.
similar to mine, that like 3 years earlier, it was me and Randy that did the zone block, and I'm the one that's supposed to come off for the linebacker, but he was so hyped up, he planted his foot and tried to throw his body all the way back when Roger Craig tried to cut it back behind me, and all I saw was when I got back up, all I saw was him holding his leg, and I knew
It was
something was wrong because
yeah, it
his
was
ankle was turned a certain way and his knee was facing a different way.
great player. I actually knew Tim Crumry because my buddy, who I coach with in the Canadian League, Bill Urbanic, was the Bengals D-line coach, and Crumry was his pupil. He loved Crumry, but a lot of people remember Crumry going out, but the Bengals brought another kid off the bench named David Grant into that game,
Yes,
and David
yes,
Grant was
pretty
a
big kid.
player. He was
Yeah,
good. He wasn't Crumry,
no,
but he was a player. It wasn't like, hey,
yeah,
that was a tough game, man. That might have
yeah.
been the greatest Super Bowl ever played.
I think so. I think so because of the drama and how it ended.
Yeah.
But if you remember correctly, Larry, we had like 430 yards of total offense, but we kept turning the ball over. I think Roger had a fumble, and and then we're famous. You know what we're famous for, Larry?
What's that?
We're famous as an organization that gives up most touchdowns in Super Bowls on kickoff returns.
Returners. That's right. That's right.
I think
I'll tell you another one that my buddy Bill Urbanic told me. He said that the key to that Super Bowl. Now this is interesting. I don't know if you know this story. You probably do. He said the key to that Super Bowl was that Michael Carter. Remember, the Bengals could have scored a touchdown at the end there, or not the end, but before Joe had his comeback down the field. Everybody remembers Joe to JT, but he said that Michael Carter got up cockeyed on the nose on Dave Remington. And on the key third down play where they were trying to run it up the middle, he said Michael Carter started screaming the cadence so loud in Remington's ear that Remington shot the snap back and they fumbled the snap. Boomer fell on it. They were forced to kick the field goal. And if they had gotten the touchdown, game's out of reach. Instead, they get the field goal. They give Joe the ball back with 3:20 to play. That's where he spotted John Candy and said, "Hey, H, there's John Candy." And the rest is history because Joe led the team down the field. Did you ever hear that story that Carter had yelled the cadence in Remington's ear and forced that fumble?
No, I didn't. I didn't.
Isn't
And
that
that was
amazing?
that's a smart thing on Michael's part.
Yeah. What a special player. Couple questions on the Niners. You mentioned Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, if there's a guy that I would want to marry my daughter, it would be Talanoa Hufanga. I mean, this guy is. I almost don't. Sometimes I joke with him. I'm like, Talanoa, are you even the same guy that is on the field? Because you talk to him off the field, he's just a gentleman and just mild mannered and just yes sir, no sir, very respectful. On the field, he's Talanoa and he's killing people and he's detonating on guys. Jesse, what a player he is, huh?
Great player. And I love that you mentioned that part of Talanoa the person,
Yeah.
because if you Google it, I'm the chairman of the Polynesian Football Hall of Fame, and we honor Polynesians from the past that came even before myself. But the beautiful thing is our culture is very important to us, and it's a chance for us to keep our Polynesian kids under a certain umbrella to make sure, knock on wood, but to make sure that they handle themselves with class when they deal with the media and when they deal with the public. Troy Polamalu is a big part of the mentoring program that we have.
Another
So
spectacular player.
yes, so
Unbelievable.
when you listen to Tua Tagovailoa and how he speaks at his press conferences, it doesn't happen by accident. It's part of who we are because of how important our culture is to us. So it's something that we're trying to do for my part on that part of my life to make sure that our kids carry our culture in a positive manner because they represent us nationally.
That's very, very cool. We got a couple people who have questions in the chat. We'll get to that in just a second. But Brock Purdy, Jesse, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about Brock Purdy. Brent Jones says he reminds him of Joe, and you never want to put that on anybody. But man, I get this deja vu watching this kid. He reminds me of Joe. Joe was a better athlete than people thought. Joe was much smarter than people thought. Joe processed like this kid. Joe had a lot of the intangibles that Purdy is demonstrating right now. He just reminds me so much of Joe. What do you see with Purdy? Does he remind you? Played with Joe. You know what made Joe great. Do you get Joe vibes watching Brock at all?
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
that's why I'm smiling right now.
Yeah.
Uh, Larry, I didn't know if I was more uh, hurt that we lost to Philly, or I was more worried that Brock Purdy's injury might be something that was more serious. We were lucky that he came back, because I truly felt like we found a quarterback. I identified how special this kid was early. When he came in, see, people forget he pretty much played the whole Miami game,
Yeah.
so they don't count that game because
Right. They were
Jimmy
the
played
Niners
one
were
drive.
trailing.
Yeah, exactly. So they keep talking about we've never seen him trail. Well, we were trailing when he came in against an 8-3 Miami team that was in first place, and then
And they
Miami.
brought that. And Jesse, you know,
Oh,
as an O lineman,
I
they
I
brought the
saw it. They
house.
brought the house, and
Yeah.
that's when I saw there was a certain play that the O line couldn't block everybody, and a strong safety came free on a B gap and hit him square in the face, and he hit George Kittle in stride to get
It
a
was a
first down.
blind throw.
It was a blind throw. Those kind of things, Larry. I knew. I'm like, oh wow, there's something special about that kid. But let me see if he can do it again. And then the very next week, people were saying, no rookie has ever come close to beating Tom Brady in their first start against him.
Right.
Not only did he beat Tom Brady, he kind of blew them out. And I
35-7, I
understand.
think.
Yeah, it was 35-7. So
Yeah.
I understand what people are saying, because they need to say it, saying that there was not the amount of work is not there. You know, but to me, if you're good, you're good. And what they failed to realize is Brock Purdy won 2 playoff games. You
Right.
know, and I felt like if we would have been able to identify the drop pass in Philly on the very first drive they had, we would have had first and 10 on the 40 going back, and him not getting hurt. I really truly felt like this kid would have made history, because I felt like he was good enough to take us to the Super Bowl last year.
He
And
was.
that's why, when I saw him get hit, I was like, oh, okay, but that's okay. We'll come back on the next drive. And then I saw him, people massaging his arm on the bench, and I'm like, are you kidding me? So I was hurt that we lost the game, but I was more worried that this young kid that we found a real diamond in the rough uh, might not be able to come back, because we didn't know how serious the injury was. But then I spoke to him at one of the fundraisers, and he told me he was already throwing a sock around, which I was still expecting him to be in the sling. Was encouraging at the time.
What is it about Joe? Joe made the guy. You guys all believed in Joe. And I'll say this, a lot of the Eagle players, Jesse, really took the Niners' confidence that, hey, we would have won that game as kind of like false bravado, right? And I understand. We all
Yeah.
understand, right? And I did an interview in Philly this week with Jody Mack and an interview guy back there, and he's like, they should have said, we could have won. But these players keep saying they would have won. And I'm like, Jody, that's how much these guys believe in Brock Purdy. And I get the sense that you guys had that level of belief in Joe.
And,
Am I
and,
right
and
in saying that?
Absolutely. I mean, you know, and we've had some tough games. With Joe Montana. As you remember, we went to Philly, and I think they had like
Oh,
4 or 5 sacks in the first half.
right.
The
On
year
that
we went
terrible
back to back
turf.
on a terrible turf.
Joe
The
got
year we went back
Joe
to
got a
back,
Joe got beat up. That team had
yeah,
Reggie White and Jerome
yeah,
Brown.
Jerome Brown, Pitts. They had Seth Joyner. They had like 7 Pro Bowlers on that defense.
Buddy Ryan's 46D.
Right, and I remember Bob McKittrick, telling us to pray, to pray on the bench. We were down by 17 in the fourth, and we came back and scored 24 points. No, we scored like 30 points in the last quarter. Believe that, Larry.
Wow.
And what Bob said was, you guys played your best when we needed you guys to play, but the first 2 quarters wasn't very good.
No.
And the great thing about those teams is we went back to Philly the next year again, and we beat them up there by running the ball for over 200 yards and negated their pass rush. But the thing with Brock Purdy is that he has the ability to make an offensive line look good, because of how he processes things, Larry, and how he gets rid of the ball and get to find the person to get the ball to. And then, he's back there looking, processing. The ball comes out in like 3 seconds, 2.5, 3 seconds. That gets the offensive line's confidence going, because those 2.5 to 3 seconds become 4 to 5 seconds as the game goes on, because now you get into a rhythm. That's what Brock Purdy, I think, brings to the 49ers. It's never, and I love Jimmy, but man, you're always squeezing when we get into tight games. Brock finds a way, and he's athletic. You're right. People don't understand. When Joe came out in '81 and took the 49ers to the Super Bowl, they were like, "Oh, who's this athletic quarterback?" Because Joe would run for first downs. But then what happens is, then when the next Hall of Famer that came was the best running quarterback before Michael Vick ever came out. So people forget that Joe was an athletic quarterback, and that's what this kid is: athletic enough to get the first downs if need to. But man, that ball comes out, and it comes out accurately. And there's no question. I had the best seat in the house to see what Joe did and what I see from the sideline. And I don't want people to get overly excited, because I know what we got. Man, that throw he threw to Debo against Dallas after we had the penalty to take the ball back.
Amazing.
He made a great throw to Ayuk that was negated,
Right.
and then brought it all over. And then he threw over a linebacker in the front of a safety accurately. And it was what young quarterbacks fail to understand, Larry, is he put a little lob on that ball.
Right. The
Most
touch.
young quarterbacks,
He had touch.
exactly, there was a touch to it and anticipation, like you mentioned. What young quarterbacks today is, they just want to throw the ball on the line, and it looks strong and beautiful. But if it's not accurate with any type of touch, what good is it? It's going to be tipped. And guess what happens when it's a tipped ball? There's an interception right behind that. So I'm excited. I'm trying to hold back on it, because I know what we got. But man, there was a time when we were losing to Seattle like 7 or 8 in a row, 6 or 7 in a row. We were close, but we never got over the hump. This past year, Purdy, I think, beat them 3 times.
Three
And 3
times.
times pretty comfortably. Even the one in Seattle was the first time I felt comfortable, even though we only won by 7. But that call on Bosa with the roughing the passer, and that penalty they had on us returning a fumble for a touchdown would have made it a 21 margin. But yeah, I like this kid. He's Mr. Irrelevant. I love it because we found him in the lower rounds. But yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited. Yeah, we're all Niner fans are excited, and I'll tell you, as somebody who covers the team now on a daily basis, is in that locker room. The kid is real. I mean, he he goes to the hospitals and visits sick children. He does all the stuff, the charity stuff. He's a good person. I mean, he's a good person. And yet he's got the competitive fire and that chip on his shoulder that is just, you can't, I call it boulder shoulder, and he just constantly wants to get better and better and better. The Niners are blessed to have this guy. We're blessed to have you, by the way. A bunch of people in the chat. Chaz says, I love me some Jesse. We got this one, East Coast Red and Gold podcast. Jesse's always such a great guest. G. Martinez says, great insight. Let me read these, and then we'll let you get on with your day. Greg says, Jesse, you signed my jersey in 1994 in D.C. You're great. Thank you, Greg. Gizmo says, Jesse, besides Trent Williams, who's the best offensive lineman we have right now? What do you think? Who's your favorite of the group now? It's hard, huh?
We got two young guys at the guard position.
Banks and Burford, yep.
I think the last 2 weeks, the game's starting to slow down for them. And I like that. I like the way they were so physical against the Cowboys. I like our center. He's sneaky good.
They got two of them now. They got Brendel, but they also got the veteran Feliciano, who came off the bench for Banks. Feliciano could play center. I mean, This is like this is almost like reminds me of the Eddie D era, where you got starters on the bench. You got Bart Oates and you got Jesse Sapolu. You know what I mean? Seriously, the Niners have some serious depth right now.
Yeah, you remember the most dominating Super Bowl, we rotated Bubba Perez and Steve Wallace at left tackle, and we rotated Bruce Colley and Terry Tosh at right guard. A lot of people would say that's not a good thing to do, but man, we dominated everybody. That was the most dominating postseason team.
Did you guys have Foster one of those years too?
Roy he came after the '89 Super Bowl.
He had a phenomenal career
Pro
too.
Bowler too. He
was awesome.
Right.
We get this one from Vito. It's Vito, baby. Says, Jesse, you were one of my dad's favorite players. Is there a way you could shout him out? Sal Mazza, a great player and a guy that you are, Jesse.
Hey, Sal. Thank you for your support. Appreciate you, man. Stay faithful.
Very cool. Fish and Chips has this one. It says, Mr. Sapolu. Oh, my God. Now he's making you feel old. Mr. Sapolu, do you get to go to Samoa often? Do you watch Samoan rugby at all?
Yes, I do. I follow them. They just lost in quarterfinals, I think, of the World Cup in France. So I follow rugby because I'm good friends with some of those. A lot of Samoans and Polynesians, Larry, on the New Zealand All Blacks, and I'm friends with them.
Nice. And Mike D finally says, love the show, Larry. I love and respect to Jesse. I think this is the best 49er team since 1994. What are your opinions? I agree. I absolutely agree. Who knows if they'll be able to get it done? And that's the bottom line is, Jesse, better than anybody. You can get close, but you're judged in this organization by Lombardi trophies, and you got to get it done. But I feel like this is the best Niner team since '94, and I realize Harbaugh went there and Shanahan and got there against Kansas City. I really believe this is their best chance at a Super Bowl ring since '94.
Agree, yeah. Because you look at tight end. It's comparable, but I think the two best guys on defense. From that defense that went to the Super Bowl under Harbaugh was, Willis and Bowman. Well, we got two guys that are just as good, in Fred Warner and
Dre Greenlaw.
Greenlaw's
a monster.
I love that dude. I
do too. I love Greenlaw. So, if you love football, you got to love Dre Greenlaw. He's another guy. He's a gentleman in the locker room, but he's nasty. I said to him, I joked with him, Jesse, after the Pittsburgh game. I'm like, hey, Dre, you be honest with me. In the fourth quarter, when you guys are up 30-7, you were playing soft coverage just so they would throw it in front of you so you could beat the tar out of guys, didn't you? And he kind of gave me that look like, yeah, like you're on to me, man. He loves to hit, man. That guy loves to hit.
And the thing that I love about him is, Warner's the effort level, the athleticism, but he doesn't even try to be physical. He's just physical. He doesn't even know, and it just reminds me of old school football. Because he had a tackle against Pollard that I was like, oh, please don't call a penalty on him.
He threw him down. He just picked him up. He was easily 3.5 feet off the line. He was on the sideline. He just picked him up and threw him into the ground.
Exactly.
Steve
back in the
Wilkes was like,
day,
that was a tone setter, man. That was the tone setting play.
exactly. And back in the day, I would have just run over and pick up my running back and take him back in. But now, Pollard gets up and start looking for the flag. I'm just like,
Right.
oh man,
It's
it's
like,
over.
hey, where's the flag? Couple more
Exactly.
comments and we'll let you go. Mike Crocker says, I've been a Niner fan since 81. Would love to hear him give me a, hey, what's up, Mike? I'm from North Carolina. I never get to meet any of these guys. Never. Can you shout out Mike Crocker, Jesse?
Hey, Mike Crocker, thank you for being a faithful from the Midwest. I appreciate you, man.
Awesome. And then this last one from Tony Nagatani says, was it more fun for you to play guard or center? And what was your favorite play to run back in your day?
It was more fun for me. Guard was my favorite position, but it was more fun for me to play center, Larry, because I kind of enjoyed controlling and what the defense is trying to do. Because they disguise a lot of things. And as I became more experienced as a center, I started reading certain things that a lot of centers, that were younger didn't read. I like that chess part of the game, even though it was a physical part too, with playing against bigger guys. But I love centers, playing the center position, because if you make the right call and you read something that we're trying to do to you, and then you score a touchdown in a dome stadium that was really, really loud, and you could just, hear silence. It's you walk back to the huddle. I'm like, man, we had all that power to keep all these 70,000 people quiet. That brings a little bit of satisfaction.
Hey, we love having you on, Jesse. And once again, for more information on the Golden Heart Run, contact Rodney Knox at goldenheartfund.org, or visit goldenheartfund.org. Niner fans, please donate to the Golden Heart Fund. I'm all for it. Jesse's putting his time and energy behind it. You root for these guys with all your heart and all your soul every Sunday. And sometimes, the game's going to end and the crowd all goes home. And the guys who fought these battles are sometimes left broken and sometimes in a bad situation financially. And we're just trying to help them out. goldenheartfund.org. If you can make a donation, please do. Jesse, do you know if tomorrow's run is full, or can people show up at Levi's in the morning at 7 a.m.? The race starts at 8. Can they still sign up in the morning, do you know?
Yes, I'm pretty sure they can come in and sign up, before the race starts at 8 o'clock.
G. Martinez is standing ovation for Jesse, one of my favorite interviews. Jesse, we love you, brother. Have a great rest of your Friday. Thank you for what you're doing for the Golden Heart Fund. We'll leave you with just a simple fist and go Niners, and great to see you. I wish you nothing but great health in the days ahead. Thanks for coming up to NorCal and supporting the Golden Heart Fund, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for your support of the Niners. Keep it up. I watch your show on YouTube.
Thank you, man.
Let's win it. Let's win it Sunday.
Let's do it. Go Niners in Cleveland. Thanks, Jesse. Take care.
Thank you.
There you go. The great Jesse Sapolu. That was a thrill. And I hope it was a thrill for a lot of you guys as well. Absolutely outstanding. Great guy, great player. 4 Super Bowl rings, and a legend, an absolute legend. And he's doing his part right now. 4-time Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler. Let's be honest, Jesse kind of belongs in the Hall of Fame. Guy McIntyre belongs in the Hall of Fame. Roger Craig belongs in the Hall of Fame. Michael Carter belongs in the Hall of Fame. I don't know if any of these guys are going to get in, but they all belong. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Awesome day. Really, I can't say I've had more fun than today streaming with all you guys and having a lot of fun. Once again, for more information on the Golden Heart Run, contact Rodney Knox, our good friend, former Niner PR man, at Rodney Knox at goldenheartfund.org. Get out to the run tomorrow at 7 a.m. at Levi's and make a donation. And you can also visit goldenheartfund.org. And even if you're not doing a run, if you just want to donate any amount of money, $10, $20, any amount helps. What I love about this is it goes right to the players. Ronnie Lott, Harris Barton, Brent Jones, he said Ron Ferrari. Some of these guys who are doing pretty well really make sure that their brothers, their former Niner teammates that reach out and have a need, Guy McIntyre was telling me yesterday how there was one former Niner player, and we won't name him, but he literally had his whole house burned down, and he needed financial support, and the Golden Heart Fund was there for him. It was the dream that was born out of Eddie D's Hall of Fame speech. And if you have the time, go on YouTube, type in Eddie DeBartolo Hall of Fame speech, and watch how Eddie spoke from the heart about taking care of the family. And the DeBartolos believe strong in taking care of the family. They view the Niners as a family. And I know a lot of you guys view the Niners as your family. So if you can help out, please do. If you can run tomorrow, please do. I'm committed to, this is the charity that I want to get behind. This is the charity that I want to support. This is the charity that is near and dear to my heart. I know the players, and they're good people, and they're just like you and I. And as Jesse said, they cry, they hurt, they bleed. They're like gladiators on game day. But the reality is that life sometimes it's hard to transition from I'm a football player from age 10 to age 35, and then suddenly I made some good money, but I've got to find a whole nother career. And some guys seamlessly do it. Steve Young and others do it incredibly well, but some don't. And that's what the Golden Heart Fund is there for, to try to help these guys find a new path, chart a new path, improve their life. So goldenheartfund.org. If you can make a donation, please do. If you want more information, I think it's Rodney.Knox. I said Rodney Knox. It's Rodney.Knox at goldenheartfund.org. They're running tomorrow at 7 a.m. For once again, it's a player-led mission. Last year, the board dispersed over $100,000 in emergency assistance to support former 49er players and surviving spouses facing challenges. This year, they're on track to increase their support. So I challenge all the fans, young and old, to come out and run or walk in support of the guys. Once again, race day registration begins tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. The race starts at 8 a.m. The kids' run begins at 10. All participants will receive a Golden Heart Run T-shirt and a finisher's medal. Entry fees are in person $45. Virtual, you can do it for $35, $25 for the kids' run. And then donations, of course, are greatly appreciated. Sponsorship opportunities and donations for giveaway items are still available. All the sponsors will receive signage, recognition, and will be highlighted on the event website. So it's a charity that I am all about, and if anything I can do, and I told Rodney this, anything I can do to help these guys raise money, raise awareness, I'm all for it. And Fish and Chips donates a couple pounds. Says, thank you, Larry. Journalistic gold, more please. What the plan is to have consistent 49er alums on the Krueg Show going forward throughout the year to highlight their fundraising events and their calendar, to bring more attention to the cause, to the charity, and to hopefully raise more money for guys who gave us an awful lot of entertainment and an awful lot of joy and may now not be in the perfect spot post-career. If we can be there to help them, that's what I'm all about. So anyway, thanks to all you guys, seriously. And man, as you can tell, I'm like a kid talking to Jesse. It's just, I just love him, and I love covering the Niners, and go Niners on Sunday. Quick mention of our sponsors here, MarinAutoglass.com. Thank you to them for being a sponsor of the Krueg Show. Check them out, MarinAutoglass.com, 415-883-3030. New York style Italian sausage, thanks to them as well. Underdog Fantasy. The Krueg Show has partnered with Underdog Fantasy this football season. They give fans a way to play alongside your favorite football team all season long. Check out their weekly pick'em players, when you can pick between 2 to 5 players and select whether they'll go higher or lower on their game stats. You can win up to 20 times your money in a single game by going 5 for 5. It's a fantasy game, but you can win real money, and you can enter the same as me, or you can make your own picks. Sign up using the link in the description and the promo code Krueg, Krueg, and they'll match you up to $100. And of course, last but certainly not least, let's thank the title sponsor of the Krueg Show, Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. For Jesse Sapolu, I'm Larry Krueger. Have a great rest of your Friday. Join me at 9 a.m. tomorrow. The coach will be in the house. We'll chop it up, looking ahead to Niners and Browns. And then on game day, I'll do a little post-game show with myself, my son, Damon, Rye, Danny, Baller, JD. They'll all be in the house. We'll do a little Niner post-game on Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock. So have a great weekend. Go Niners. Hopefully they roll to 6-0. And once again, peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get